we go. This is exciting.
I wonder if my live button will light up.
We shall see. I believe we are live and yet I cannot see it. So let me throw up my Zoom. Okay, I think we're live. We are live on Facebook. It's 3 p.m. It's time for dinner with Nanny Bubby. And Nanny Bubby is learning how to Zoom directly onto Facebook. So anyway, welcome everybody to this interview with our well-organized life expert, Brenda Prinzavalli. So Brenda, welcome. You know I love you. Yes, and I'm so happy that you agreed to do this because you and I have conversations all the time. My daughter Harmony calls it a Brenda Marla think tank. Brenda and I work together in many capacities, and we have for the last, believe it or not, 17 years, which when I kind of put the numbers to that, Brenda, I was really kind of surprised. But Brenda has a license plate. So welcome. I know do you want to say a few words? I could just go on forever. But what would you like to say just really quickly?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm so delighted to be here, and I'm so excited about talking to all your viewers as well, because I hear all of the wonderful things that you share with them. And so it's an honor to be here to share a little tidbit of what I know as well to all your wonderful followers and people who are joining us live and or watching this later.
Thank you. We're great. It's great to have you. And so when it comes to a well-organized life, specifically, we're going to be talking about how to be well-organized when it comes to your food. And what we're really talking about today is how to be well-organized when it comes to food with regards to the holidays. So 2 weeks from today, everybody's going to be sitting down to have Thanksgiving dinner with their family, with their friends, and let's hope that they can be sitting down with their family and friends with, you know, all the spikes that are going on and, you know, all the governors calling everyone back home. But what I specifically wanted to talk to you about is that I find this now, and this was not even the case 10 years ago, but now in life, everyone comes into your home, family and friends, and everybody has different dietary goals that they live by. And no matter who comes through your door, you need to be able to feed them. And I know specifically in my own home, my daughter's a vegetarian. My husband wants all high protein and very low carb. My daughter will eat more high carb because it's an alternative to big proteins like steaks and beef and chicken. She does eat fish. And some people are, oh no, I can't have dairy, or oh no, I'm gluten intolerant. So let's talk about how do you organize a big family meal and take into consideration all of those things.
Well, you know, in a perfect world, one of the great things to find is a dish that meets all of that criteria. But then we also know that there are contradictory goals in some of that criteria so that it's not possible. So again, whether it's, you know, if you make a dish that has, you know, some meat in it, then you make one without meat in it. But right. You still have then, you know, those great same flavors, same texture, same appearance, everybody's plate can look the same. So your job then at that point is just to make one with meat, one without meat, and just make sure they're very well labeled so that people know which one to choose. So that's a really good starting point.
Very true. And one thing that I know that I used to do is I used to use chicken stock in my stuffing. But I switched from chicken stock to a vegetarian stock, a vegetable stock, to make that up. And I'm very careful. I really do have to say that for me, I'm very careful to not cross-contaminate when I'm cooking so that I can assure my daughter that not even a spoon has gone into the meat that has then touched whatever else I'm making, a risotto or anything else. A little bit like cooking kosher. You want to make sure that there's no cross-contamination or gluten or whatever else. But go ahead. I can tell you want to say something.
I was just going to say that, you know, there are a lot of very easy replacements such as that. And it's amazing the number of what you would predominantly think as vegetable based really have some meat in them. So if that is what you're looking for, an alternative, if that's what you're trying not to use is a meat or an animal-based product, some of those things like simply the chicken stock and the vegetable stock. But also if you're ordering, or if you're, I mean, yes, the goal is that you're making it yourself, but in looking at those recipes, it's surprising. I mean, just even, we were at a restaurant and I asked them about their hummus, and they used chicken stock to make their hummus. And I was just shocked. I was shocked. So, you know, look for those hidden things. Even if you're buying an ingredient that's already made, then really read those labels very carefully, because things can be hidden that you would have, that would just surprise you like you can't believe, like that one.
That is shocking to I really, I should share that with Harmony, because she would just flip out about that. What's interesting though, is as a cook, one year I was making butternut squash soup, and I love taking little tiger pumpkins and putting the butternut squash soup in the tiger pumpkins and serving it, because it just looks so fun. It's so festive to do. And I thought, you know, I am going to make butternut squash soup with chicken stock in this pot, and I'm going to make it with a vegetarian vegetable stock over here. And I am going to kind of test it, but for sure, at least Harmony would have it over here without the chicken in it. And this is what I discovered. There used to be, and you know, Trader Joe's got rid of this, but I found another vegetable stock at Whole Foods. But Trader Joe's had a vegetable stock that was like gold. It was so delicious. And when and they discontinued it, but when I made that butternut squash soup with the vegetable stock, everyone in the house that night preferred the butternut squash soup. And it was my homemade chicken stock, which really killed me. But everybody preferred the vegetable stock over the chicken stock. So sometimes as a cook, trying to make everybody happy, you actually find that one item actually makes more people happy than you might otherwise realize.
Sure, sure. Yeah, we had a, just speaking about having meals, and we had friends over and we were doing our soup and sliders night. And I love a Reuben. I've always loved all the flavors of a Reuben, but of course it's made with, you know, corned beef and pastrami, or, you know, whatever it is. So, so we made, talking about alternatives, I took extra firm tofu and made up the rub recipe for pastrami, and just marinated the tofu slices in that overnight, and then baked it so it became a little bit firmer. But again, one of the things that you're always trying to do when you're looking for an alternative is to, whether it is maintain the same spice, the same flavor, the same texture, so that a lot of that doesn't change. You know, I mean, I grew up eating Reubens. I wouldn't eat one now, but when I have that, it was just absolutely delicious. And so then again, also what you put on a Reuben is Thousand Island dressing. Right. Well, that has some dairy in it. And so one of the other great alternatives, and I know we've talked about it, but it's cashew cream. And it's the most amazing cream-based replacement. And since we were talking about your wonderful soup as well, that, you know, if there's a soup that you put cream in, you can also use cashew cream. And it's very—
let's talk about that. Let's talk about the recipe for cashew cream, because almond milk, as an example, is not really as complicated as you would think to make, but you have to drain it through a bag and make sure all the husk is off the almond, and that you don't get that, and you're, you know, squeezing the almond bag, you know, to get all the milk out. And it's much easier than you would think. But you tell me that cashew cream is much easier than almond milk.
Easy. So what you do is you buy raw cashews, and I usually just go ahead and buy the pieces because they're less expensive and they also soak better. Okay. You soak them in water in the refrigerator.
Where do you get them?
I bought a bag at Trader Joe's the last time I did it, but you can get, as long as they're raw cashews, any place that you can get them is great. If you can find organic, that's great as well. You know, we always love to push the organic option. It's always
that's for sure.
But soak it, you know, put it in, I put it in a very large glass pitcher, and make sure that there's plenty of water covering it, because they will expand. As nuts soak, they expand. So you don't just fill it to
they sink as they absorb the water. Do they get lighter and start to go to the top and float, or do they go to the bottom?
They just stay at the bottom.
Okay.
Yep, they don't float. But you just always want to make sure that there's extra water, so that as they start to hydrate, those top ones don't get pushed over the edge of the water line, and then they're not soaking anymore. So you want to make sure it gets an even soak. Better to have more water than less. Okay. Because then when you're done, what you do is you just run it through a strainer, just rinse them off. And then a Vitamix or any of those other high-powered blenders, put it in with a little bit of water and blend it up, and you have cashew cream. So I always like to start on the thicker side and not add as much water, because you can always make it thinner. It's just harder to make it thicker.
So you take the soaked cashews, you drain them, you throw them in a Vitamix, you add a quarter of a cup, half a cup, how much water to like 2 cups of cashews, let's say?
You know, there isn't, I'm sure there's an exact recipe, but I always kind of do it by feel, you might say, or by visual, in that when the cashews go into the pitcher for blending them in the Vitamix, I try and make sure that, I mean, at least it's covered with water and maybe a little bit higher. But that's where you kind of, you know,
no matter how much you're putting into the Vitamix, you're going to fill up a little bit higher with water all the way. Okay, cool. Because I just thought it was like a quarter of a cup, but you're saying that no matter how much goes into your Vitamix, as if this were the Vitamix, that we would fill the cashews all the way to here and then fill the water all the way up to just a little above.
Just about, because if you don't,
that's a good eyeball recipe.
Yeah, it's
good.
And also you'll be able to tell if you don't put that much water in and your blender is having a really hard time blending it, then you know you need to add more water. So it's always easier to start and then add a little bit more water as needed. But again, you know, usually, so if you want even the fine tuning part of it, what we do is make as thick as possible. So with the least amount of water, blending it up.
Yes.
Then take that out of pour it out. And then there's always a little bit left in there. So if you leave a little bit left and then add just a little bit more water, now you have a very thick based cashew cream. And then you'll have a little bit thinner one as rinsing out the pitcher, because it's a little difficult to, you know, scrape every single bit of that cashew cream out from every little crevice. So better to use water.
Okay. All right. I guess I froze. I thought you were frozen, but I guess it was me that was frozen. Okay. So that's what we can do with cream. What can we do with turkey? If you're wanting to do an alternative for turkey, or would you just say, so my daughter is an example, and I was vegetarian for 7 years. So during those 7 years, I just ate all the accoutrements on the side and never bothered with the turkey. And that's what she does, and she's very happy to do that. Sometimes I'll throw a salmon on for her. But what do you find is a turkey alternative if you want to have that flavor and that taste?
Well, you know, one of the things that you always have to look at when you're looking for an alternative, especially in the meat alternative area, that there are prepared and processed, and I say that they're processed, products that mimic meat. And you just have to be a little bit careful of that. You know, there's a brand that makes a stuffed turkey roll with stuffing, but it is completely plant-based. But what you always have to be careful of with that, I like people to be extra cautious and really look at those ingredients, because you might be saying, I don't want to eat turkey, whether it's because of meat or for health or whatever the reason is. And then now all of a sudden you bring in an alternative or a replacement or something to duplicate that. And you're actually bringing in ingredients that might be actually worse than the turkey. So you don't want to do that.
Right. And so I really want to add to that without calling anybody out by name, but Both Harmony and I were eating a very top brand meat burger alternative, and our stomachs hurt so bad. It was like at separate times, and I said, man, I just can't even tell you how badly my stomach just like was killing me after eating this alternative. She goes, oh my God, it happened to me last week. She was, I'm never going to eat that again. And I'm like, no, I'm not either. I'm not going to eat that. I really believe in eating whole grain, organic, grown from the ground uh, things, right? And one of the reasons that I'll eat meat over chicken is because meat, at least the cows, have to roam. If they're not stuck in a barn, they do have to roam pastures in order to be, they're more healthy than those chickens, as far as I'm concerned, if I can't get organic chicken. But I do an organic turkey, free range organic turkey every year. I love that. So let's talk about, I know you've got a couple of books. Let's talk about the books that you brought for everybody to see.
Yeah, and one of them in particular has, again, you're looking for those flavors that are going to be similar to what it is you're trying to replace. So I don't think it's in this book, but here's one. It's called Food for the Spirit. And it's a wonderful one about seasonal vegetarian recipes to warm the kitchen and nourish the soul. And so I just,
better.
yes, exactly. So this has, it's very dog-eared, and my husband finds all kinds of wonderful recipes out of here that he uses very frequently. And again, they're, finding good, healthy, plant-based options. The other one with...
Can you pick that up longer, Brenda, so everybody can see it? Because yeah, there you go. Seasonal, yeah, pick it up just a little bit so we can see who it's by. There we go. There we go. Okay, somebody can take a screenshot of that if they want to see that. Seasonal vegetarian recipes to warm. I love that. I love that.
And I guess one of the things, and this is, along the lines of some of the things that we talk about, but they talk about the whole being in touch with your food and really letting it nourish your soul. And so when you do start from the garden, by the time you go out and you pick a tomato and you carry it in and you wash it off, there's that part where you're making a connection to that food and you're actually preparing your body to receive it, because now it knows what it's having. Drive-through does not give your body a chance to understand what's coming and prepare. So that's one of the perspectives that I really appreciate about that book.
And to that extent, you have mentioned a time frame. You have said that scientists, or those that really look at food as, life-giving, which, I mean, all of us, I'm sure, if we don't really think about it, we should think about it. Food is truly life-giving. I mean, it is amazing that the planet comes and provides on a spiritual level these foods that are here for our taking to give us life. But to that extent, these scientists or these mindful eating gurus say that it should take you an hour and a half to 2 hours a day to actually work and prepare your meals and your food. Is that correct? Is that what you find?
That is, yes. What I heard, the statistic that I heard, or the recommendation was plan to spend at least 2 hours preparing your food. And boy, you and I know that, don't we? And that, by the time you clean it and chop it or then prepare it, put it into a recipe, then because that's just it's what I experienced myself. And then when I heard that, I went, right. And so now I don't find it as a burden to spend that time.
and forgive me for interrupting, but I really want to make that point because I say this so frequently when I do my 3 o'clock lives, right? And no more dinner dreads. And one of the things I say over and over and over again is that food was not supposed to meant to be fast. And it was not even meant to be easy. That is, anybody that told you that it needed to be quick, fast, and easy, and that attitude would nourish your family and yourself as opposed to just feed them, lied to you. It is a marketing ploy that everybody believed in. It is a marketing ploy that for those of us who were well educated, who went to college, who were out in the working world, that being in the kitchen was demeaning to our education. And in fact, it is not. And in fact, I said, because right now the most powerful woman in the world is actually our vice president-elect, Kamala Harris. I know I say that wrong a couple of times. And would we all feel differently if she said, one of the greatest joys I have in my life when I'm not being powerful, when I'm not being out there running the country or running whatever it is that she has run in her life, if then her very favorite place to be was in the kitchen? I think we would all feel very differently. And I think that as women and even as men who might be the sole, I know many men who are the preparers of food for the family, that to feel that the kitchen is a demeaning place to be is just the wrong attitude. It is the most important place to be. It is where everything that nourishes your heart, your body, and soul happens. And it is the place that your children will always want to remember. They will all want to gather in that kitchen. And the longer it takes you to prepare that food, the better it's going to taste. And the more opportunity you give to them, the more opportunity you give to your children to assist you and to learn, either by watching while they're doing their homework and just they learn from just out of the corner of their eyes watching you, or they actually get done with the homework and pop up and say, hey, can I help you with that? And so I say this all the time. And so either you agree with me, in which case you're here for that reason, which is great, or you disagree with me, in which case I'm just not your person, which is fine. But it's not meant to be fast. It's not meant to be quick. And it is meant for you to take the time and the love to get it ready, which prepares your body, and the smells help prepare your children's and your loved ones' body to receive the food that you're putting in front of them. So there you go. That's my whole attitude and philosophy. I hope there's a lot of people watching right now, because that's my message. That is my message.
Right. And so then what I also do like to provide for people is the way to add that layer of organization that supports you being able to do that. Because if you consolidate some of your tasks, then it does make it possible to make those wonderful meals. And so you duplicate your efforts and you make it so that you get more out of that effort time, so that if you only have an hour to work on the food, that you're maybe actually getting 2 meals out of it instead of 1, or there's strategies.
Give us an example. Give us a strategy of that. I mean, it's very easy. That's the problem. People hear, oh, you could make 1 meal out of 2, but they don't know how. So what's a little bit of a how? Give me a how on that. Give us an example.
Well, I think it's more so that, if you know that for one day, your hour or hour and a half, whatever you can put toward your food for your family, is going to be spent on acquiring that food and cleaning that food. Now it is going to all be ready, so that the next day when you have an hour and a half, or maybe it's only an hour that next day, the vegetables are cleaned, they might already be chopped, whatever it is, so that now all you have to do is actually get it out, put the ingredients in, and then let it prepare and cook. So if it is that what you're doing is making some kind of, we like things to be fresh, of course, But if it is a recipe that you can serve fresh and or you can do some kind of freezing, I mean, soup is a perfect example, right? So instead of making just soup for one night, make soup for 3 nights or 4 nights, make a big pot of it and put it in the freezer so that the next day all you're doing, or 3 weeks from then,
And we found that too with the shakshuka recipe, is that you can make a huge batch of shakshuka and then freeze a quarts of it, and then you can, you know, use that. And the shakshuka sauce is great on pasta. It's great over meat. It's great over a lot of different things. So, so that's a really good alternative. Yeah.
Yeah. And even if it is that what you're doing is the ingredients that you're buying and prepare and cleaning actually work in 2 different recipes. So let's say you're doing something that has, I know it's not your favorite, but let's say it has cilantro in it.
Not my favorite. I can't even. How about basil? Let's talk about basil.
Okay, well, basil, yes. And the only reason I think about cilantro is because whenever we bring it into our house, we need to make several recipes using cilantro because it just doesn't last very long. So then it's finding 3 recipes that are using similar ingredients, but they have a little different flavor, a little different texture, a little something, you know, that's, you know, the carrying of it is a little bit different, and that one is in a tortilla, maybe another one's in a salad or a bean salsa or something like that.
Right.
So you're using it in multiple ways.
Right. What was the other book you brought for us to see?
Well, this is Tal Ronan, and this is The Conscious Cook. And this, I'm not sure if there's a glare on it or not there.
No, not too bad. It's not too bad.
Yeah. This is where the cashew cream was first found by us in our home. Right. And so many wonderful alternatives. So, you know, whether it's making like a flan type dessert and using cashew cream for it, it just becomes so many different things. And so that's where, you know, you invest the time in making the cashew cream. And now, based on how you use it, it can be used in multiple ways. You put a little bit of apple cider vinegar, a little bit of lemon in it. Now you have sour cream. You know, you put a little bit of, you put just a little bit of only apple cider vinegar, and now you have buttermilk, you know. So there's all these different ways that you can use it just to very slightly change the taste of it. You can put in sweet things. I made a pumpkin mousse with it the other night. You know, you mix in pumpkin with the cashew cream and put all the spices on top and a few little nuts. And now you have this wonderful mousse that has a very creamy taste. But
speaking of pumpkin mousse, Nanny Bubby is making pumpkin mousse tomorrow on Channel 8. So if you live in Las Vegas, and even if you don't, you can stream 8 News now and watch Nanny Bubby on KLAS TV 8. And I'm making pumpkin mousse into the little tiger pumpkins. So just thought I'd give myself a shameless plug.
No, that's great.
I'm going to be making them for Thanksgiving as well, and for our cooking show. So again, all of you who want to join the cooking show, please, not cooking show, but the cooking class or the cooking get together. There are over 20 of us that are getting together to cook for Thanksgiving and be together. So many people cannot be together this year. And so it's really exciting. It's going to be November 22nd at 1:00 p.m. So Tanya Murray is joining me. We've got Grand Marnier cranberry relish that we're making. We've got the pumpkin mousse, banana lasagna, butternut squash lasagna, which I think is really interesting and a good alternative. So if you make a heavy butternut squash lasagna as an example, and you don't have any problem with gluten, you can eat that instead of turkey for Thanksgiving. So lots of alternatives. Let's talk about one more thing. And here is my question for you, because you're very health conscious and supplement conscious. What are you finding to be your COVID healthy eating prescription?
All the things that strengthen your immune system. So that is definitely making sure that you're getting plenty of greens. And whether you mix it in a smoothie, you saute them, you have a salad. You know, a lot of times people say, oh, greens, I mean, how many salads can I eat every day? You know, and they kind of belabor that, but you can certainly deliver it in many different ways. And one of the things I do on a very regular basis is just simply sauteing greens, preferably not spinach, only because spinach is the one green that loses so much of its nutrients when you cook it. So I try and use that fresh in salads or smoothies, and then all the other greens, cooking them. But definitely those. Eating, they always say eating the rainbow, which I love just because it's a very happy, positive way, but making sure that you're getting variety and looking at the colors on your plate. You know, the colors just, not only do they enhance the nutritional aspect of what you're getting, but the visual and just the pleasure of it. It's just, you know, you look at the bright colors of squash, and then you put in some beets, and you have the greens and all these wonderful colors. So just making sure that you're getting plenty of greens and the whole rest of the rainbow. I think that's a really good basic way to go.
With, as an example, with vitamin C, like big doses of vitamin C?
Absolutely. You know, I'm a vitamin C, stand on my soapbox.
Yes, okay. I wanted to make sure you mentioned that because I find that amazing. And when I had COVID, I found that to be incredible. I was taking, 12,000 to 14,000 units a day, and I really could feel the strength I had from it, even though I didn't have a lot of strength during those weeks. But yeah, it was crazy. And anything else that you wanted to?
You know, the one other thing, and we can put a link, or I'll put a link in the
Facebook.
In the show notes below, or in the Facebook notes. But one of the things, and you mentioned it a little bit ago, and that is gluten-free recipes.
Right.
And cooking gluten-free. And it really, you know, on one hand, when you go out and you try and buy processed foods that are gluten-free, again, a lot of them are going to be very high in other ingredients that you really don't want. So you might not be having gluten, but now you've introduced all these other ingredients that maybe aren't so wonderfully healthy for you. So I found a resource.
There's a lot of chemicals in this alternative food. And I think that you are so better off to not try to have an alternative unless it's something organic, like the organic cashews that you can turn into milk, cream, sour cream, and buttermilk. That is, you can do that yourself, but these Beyond Burgers or beef alternatives that you do not, I read those labels, and honestly, I'd rather have Lay's potato chips because it's, the ingredients sound the same, and I know Lay's is very unhealthy for you. And anyway, it's a good thing we don't have a huge viewership here, because I suppose I'd have a lawsuit here really.
Well, what I did was I found a resource, because people try and use then alternate flours. And you can either make your own flour, you can buy your own flour, whether it's almond flour, quinoa flour, pea flour. I mean, there's just an unlimited number of flour choices. But each one sort of has what it's best at. And so knowing that ahead of time. So if you're going to be making cookies, using a certain kind of flour compared to if you're making a pastry crust, or if you're
going to put
doing
that
something
in the show notes.
Absolutely. So there's 6 different kinds of flours listed and what they are best at. So that's really important, because you just, you throw in a different kind of flour and it doesn't turn out, and there's, you get a little defeated, and well, that didn't work, and how am I going to do this? So this is really helpful to take the,
and where did you find that, Brenda? I know you're going to put it in the show notes, but where did you find it? Is it in a book and you're just going to type it up, or is there a link to a website, or where do you find that?
I found it online. It's 6 gluten-free flours to have in your kitchen and how to use them.
Oh, I love it.
And it's by Isabel Smith.
I love it. Thank you. I love that. They're going to love it too. And here's the last thing. When it comes to organizing your refrigerator, what are the top 4 things that you should do to organize your refrigerator?
Wow. I just reorganized my refrigerator last night. I had no idea you were going to ask me.
Okay, there you go.
Perfect. What I did was I found that what I thought was the most logical place to put something really was not the most convenient and the most useful. So, for example, a vegetable drawer. I was putting vegetables in there because it's a vegetable drawer, right? We do, you know, it's a vegetable drawer. Why wouldn't you put it in there?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. But things got buried. They were too low. Then they'd all of a sudden go bad because we didn't get to them. And so I'm like, okay, something has to happen different for this. And so I guess what the first thing is even though there is a section in your refrigerator that is screaming, put me here, make sure that that's really where you want to put it.
So what did you do? So let's hear about it. What did you do? You didn't put your vegetables in your vegetable drawer. What did you put there?
I put a lot of my extra things. I put in my extra container of ginger, my backup extra container of turmeric, my backup jug of, or my container of miso, all the things that when I know I want to get to them, they're not going to be buried underneath other bags of things and such. So I put that down there.
Vegetables.
Well, then I put those more at eye level on a shelf. And again, you know, one of the best things to always do is
because we've talked frequently how that if they're not in a plastic bag, they get soft and start wilting in the refrigerator from all the moisture. So do you keep them in plastic bags, or what do you do with that about that?
Well, when they first come home, they stay in their plastic bag until I have a chance to clean them, if it's not right away. As soon as they get cleaned, then my preference is to put them in some type of glass or BPA plastic container that is specifically designed to help keep them fresh. You know, they have little vents on them and they have little trays. And so the other great thing about putting it in a container like that is that they can stack better. You can see it. You can put a label on it. They're easier to move around so that if you need to get to what's in the back, you can pull one thing out.
What did you put on the refrigerator door? Anything different about what you did? The door. Refrigerator door.
You know, it had a section for putting soda cans. Then you know how that doesn't work for me. So I took it out. I'm like, I don't need, that's not what I would put there, even though I was trying to put other jars. It was just more cumbersome for somebody that is what their diet is. It might be more convenient. I found it in the way. Same thing with,
go ahead. Same thing with,
I was just gonna say, same thing with the egg tray on the door. I don't want it on the door. I want it inside because I want to be able to, you know,
get to it. And so if you were to describe your type of eating, what would you say it is? How do you describe your eating? Like, are you predominantly vegetarian? Are you pescatarian? What are you?
I say that I'm predominantly plant-based. Every now and then I have a little bit of fish, a little bit of egg, and a little bit of cheese.
Oh, and any one kind of cheese that you have?
Usually something that is a hard cheese that goes with a nice plate of pesto and olives and a nice glass of red wine.
There you go. And how long?
In very small amounts.
And how long have you been plant-based? Because I swear, I think, Brenda, that since I've known you for 17 years, that you were plant-based before anybody heard of that.
Let's see. I always have to think about what year it is. So going on 31 years.
Oh my God. So that would be in the 90s you started this.
Yep, 1990.
1990. Well, there you have it. She looks pretty good to me, guys. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I know this was crazy for you and even for me because I'm stuck here in Laguna and could not do this interview on the road. So we are now on our way home, traveling home. And thank all of you for joining us and being here with us today. And Brenda, just a plethora of information that she can share with us. Is there any last little piece of information you want to share that you didn't get to?
No, just always look for the ways that you can be healthy because that's your best health insurance.
There you go. So as we say goodbye and we say we love you and thank you for joining us, but together, shall we both say spread? Do you know what the next words are? Ready?
I do.
Let's all go forth and spread love
like butter.
There we go. Thanks, Brenda. Bye, everybody. And meeting for all.